When you ask a user to enter something, you need to validate the input so you're sure they've entered a valid value. This is what I'm going to teach you in today's video. Make sure you stick until the end because I'm going to give you lots of examples and tips to make your life easy. So here we are. I've just created validate user inputs.py. And here we're going to have a look at different validations. So we're going to start out with validating if the user enters a number. Okay, so let's start with user input is equal to input, enter a number, and of course if we want to print, so this wouldn't work because user input, the input is actually a string. So even if I wrote 3, the 3 would be a string, not an integer or float. So we need to convert it. We do something like float and then user input, or we can do something like int, integer, and we're going to stick to integer. Okay. So now this would work, but what if the user actually enters a letter? This wouldn't work because int only converts strings that can be converted to a number. So for example, 3, a string 3 could be converted to 3, the number 3. But if we entered hello, hello wouldn't be converted to an integer because how can you convert a word to an integer? You can't, okay? So we're going to take advantage of this impossibility to convert a string, a word to a number. And we're going to use it to validate. So for example, if we do something like try, user input, int, user input, except value error, print invalid, you need to enter a number. Okay, something like that. So here we are trying to convert what the user entered to a number. If this error occurs, so value error, that means that the string couldn't be converted to a number because it's actually not a number. Okay, so that would be invalid and the user would be shown this. Okay, so let's actually try if we get the invalid. So enter number, invalid, you need to enter number. Okay, if you enter a number, you don't see invalid, you don't see anything. Okay, so this could be used to check if the user actually entered a number, but we want Python to actually keep asking the user for a number until they enter a number. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use the while true loop. Okay, so we're going to get this. Actually, I'm going to write that right here. So while true, I'm going to do this. We're going to get this and put it in here. Okay, so we're going to try to convert the number. If the number can't be converted, you need to tell the user that they entered something invalid. And then down here, we can actually print the result. Let's say 2 plus user input. Because here we are sure that the user input is actually a number, because otherwise the loop would keep looping and looping and looping. Okay. By the way, of course, you need to break out of the loop because otherwise that would keep looping anyway. So here, if the user input is converted to an integer correctly, then you break. If the user input cannot be converted to a number, then this runs, the except runs, and the user is shown this. Okay, so let's try that out real quick. So enter number, invalid, invalid, 5. 5 plus 2, 7. Okay, so this is the first way you can check. You can validate an input, and here you're checking if the user entered a number, a valid number. You can check the other way around. So if the user entered anything but a number, and that's really easy because you can just do something like this. So let's copy that, paste it here. So here you copy this and you place it here. And down here you break. So what happens here? Here you try to convert it. So if the string can be converted to a number, that means that the user entered a number. We don't want them to enter a number. So enter anything but a number. So we want anything like a special character, whatever, but not a number. So here, as I said, we try to convert it. If the user entered 1, which is not valid, this works because of course you can convert the number to an integer. So we need to print invalid, and the while true will start again. Okay. But if this throws an error, that means that the user actually entered something different from a number, and we take advantage of the value error. So here in this case, we want the error to occur so that we know that the user entered something else, not a number, and we break out of it. Okay, if that makes sense. So here we can't do something like 2+ because that would throw an error. Let's actually try that out. Let's clear that. So enter anything but a number. 3, invalid. You need to enter, of course, here you need to enter anything. Okay, so that would work. 4, anything but a number. 2, anything but a number. Hello, hello. Okay, perfect. That works. Another thing we can do is we can check the presence of an invalid character in the user input. So for example, when setting up a nickname, sometimes you don't want the user to enter certain characters, and so you can do something like this. So let's comment this out down right here. So first of all, you start out with a list of characters that you don't want to allow. So dot slash semicolon. I'm just making this up, so doesn't really make a lot of sense. So here we print a little space and then nickname. Do something like input. Enter a nickname. This not allowed. Okay, something like that. Okay, so the user knows that they cannot enter these characters. Then invalid counter, and we are going to use this later on to check if there is at least one invalid character inside of the user input. If there is, we are going to tell the user, wait, you entered something wrong, enter a valid nickname. Okay, so then for char in not allowed characters, if char in nickname invalid characters counter plus equal 1, we add 1. Okay, so basically here we loop through these, and for each one of these we check if this is included in the nickname, if this is included in the nickname, if this is included in the nickname. If so, we add 1 to the invalid chars counter. Okay, then after the loop we do something like if invalid characters counter is greater than 0, which means that we've encountered an invalid character, we print something to the user and we do something like invalid. The nickname cannot contain dot slash semicolon. Else we break. And down here we can do something like print and print welcome slash nickname. Okay. So basically here we've got the characters that we don't want the user to have in the nickname. Here we get the user input. we've got the counter of the invalid characters. We go through this list. If one of these is inside, so we check one by one. If this is inside of nickname, let's say Fabio dot something, that would increase the counter. And if the counter is greater than 0, then we've got an invalid character. If not, we break and we can use the nickname down below. So let's try that out. It's clear. Enter a nickname. Let's say Fabio dot invalid. Let's say slash or something like that, and Fabio Programmer, something like that. Welcome Fabio Programmer, because we didn't write any of these characters in the nickname. Okay, so this is working perfectly. There. Okay, then last but not least, maybe you want the user to enter only a specific set of letters or values. For example, 5 letters of the alphabet, or maybe all the letters of the alphabet, but not like special characters and stuff like that. Or for example, you want the user to enter just 1 letter and not just 3 or 4 letters, or a name, something like that. Like for the Hangman game, which I've made a video about. And here I'm gonna show you how you can do that. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out again. Let's go down here. Like that. So first of all, you need a list of valid characters you want to set. I'm going to copy and paste the whole alphabet. Something like that. Okay. And then I'm going to start with while true print. Then same user input. Input. Enter 1 letter. Right? Just 1 letter. Then, if user input is not in list valid characters, actually let's write Charles, so that should make more sense. So here I'm checking a lot of things. I'm checking the length because I've got just 1 letter per element, which means that if the user enters AB, the same input, that wouldn't work because we don't have an AB element in here, just an A and AB. Okay, so we're checking the length, we're checking if the user enters the right letters and stuff like that. So we're checking a lot of things just by doing this. Okay, so if user input not in list valid chars, we're gonna print invalid and the letter of the something like that. So then if the user input is in the list, in this list, which is actually a tuple, let's call it tuple, at least would work as well, so no worries. We're going to break, of course. We're going to break, and then down here we can use the letter to do whatever we want to do. So you entered user input. I'm using the F string. Okay. So here we are giving the user a list of options, and only if the user enters one of these options does the program actually go ahead. Otherwise, it keeps looping and looping until they enter the right letter, the right character. So let's try that out. Enter 1 letter, 3, invalid. As you can see, it doesn't work. It doesn't work until I enter just 1 letter. You entered R. Perfect.